Okay. So accessory dwelling unit standards, after our last meeting, Don was kind enough to mark it up a little bit, and that's what this is.
Okay.
So before I go too far, I think most of you know I'm leaving the end of October, leaving Culver.
I thought it was at the end of the year, so it isn't October.
It is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I've got a couple of different things I'm gonna pursue, but yeah.
Okay.
So Joel's here tonight as our president of our plan commission. And this will be my last meeting because I'm gonna spend my last month completely focused for this. Completely focused on getting the other things prepared for whomever may take over, including, I guess, writing my job description. No,
They didn't give you one when you hired on?
I'm gonna have to go back and look. Right, I know I have to come up with something.
So in the interim, who is going to assume your role? Kevin?
It'll probably be Kevin mostly.
Okay.
I'll be available to help out, try.
The transition or whatever?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm not just gonna go away, but I'll still be able to help some, but so that's one of the reasons I asked Joel, and Joel said he'd be here tonight. Since as president of the plan commission, plan commission put this committee together. So how it moves forward will be back in your hands in the committee.
Oh, okay.
Since it's an advisory committee. Hi.
Hi.
I just let everybody know that it doesn't already know that I'm leaving Culver at the end of the month,
Oh, I thought it was gonna be this.
or the end of October, I'm sorry,
Oh, okay.
end of October, yeah,
Did it end up being sooner than you thought?
a little bit, yeah,
Okay.
it is. So, and what I handed you is, and what I was just telling him is that it's Joel's here and a big part of the plan commission, that they'll have to decide what that path is going forward for this advisory committee. And what I handed out is what Don marked up from our last meeting.
Yeah, and I was taking pretty good notes, and I thought that one of the great pieces of input we got was, besides just a very cool acronym, some Tuvia, and this idea of ADUs and then DADUs, DADUs. And I thought there was a way to kind of simplify this, that we're talking about the same thing. Accessory dwelling units, in one case, they're attached to the actual residence. In another case, they may be freestanding. So that's probably the biggest single change, was to try to simplify this draft ordinance. We had also had some conversation during that meeting. We'd had previously a minimum square footage of 450. We had talked about at the last meeting 1,000. So it's just from the notes from that meeting that came into in the draft. The other things we had talked about was stairs. Since we're talking about a small space, and should those count against the square footage? Seemed to be a consensus they should not. You might think about something like an exterior stairway. And then we also talked about a maximum height of 26 feet.
So that 26 feet, that's on an attached.
Well, I'm just looking at that, Dan, as I look at it. I think the thing it does not account for is, like, you have an apartment above a garage, an attached garage. And so it's already might already be about 26 feet. Because imagine if you're in R1 and you could go up to 35, it might already exist. You're just going to finish out space. So I'm not sure that's quite the right way to phrase it,
Right.
as opposed to you want to convert a freestanding garage to, a small dwelling. So I think that's probably not the right answer.
Because I know, as you verify this, on like the BZA, 16 feet has been the detached height. And so how is that going to play in? Is that going to be the same as that? Is that going to go to 26 feet?
Well, that's a good question.
Because
Accessory dwelling
and
units,
let me rephrase it, especially when we get into detached around the lake.
Right.
That could become a major issue. That's why we kept it at 16.
Okay.
So especially with the detached, and Steve will verify that we get a lot of that. But
accessory structures, yeah.
yeah, and that's something I think that we need to have some control. Still, and the 26 with attached, I can see how that could play, especially, but the detached, I think, needs to be defined there. The difference.
I don't know where the 26 was just in my notes. I don't recall where it came from.
From how the 26-foot was developed, that created a section. So there is a difference between an accessory structure and a deck. That would be considered an accessory structure. The accessory structure would be, I understand, planning code, is sheds, garages, what else would you have? Essentially, shed, garage.
Yeah,
And there's other ones that they usually write.
there could, accessory structures or pools
Pools isn't right.
count. There's a list
So
of,
they're non-conditioned, non-occupied structure, non-conditioned, non-habitable structure, basically for storage.
Right.
So, right? So that's an accessory structure. A dadu is let's take the language away, is a small house. And if you have an existing garage and it's being converted into a detached, be it, and you want to build on top of it with a roof, angled, so it's aesthetics, depending on the neighborhood. That's when I created a section saying, how would that work? Okay. So in an existing garage, depending on the span, right, you can span it without putting any posts or beams inside the garage with a floor truss, which is around 22 inches deep. So there will be no new structure put inside that building, right? It helps to parking your cars and such. So now you're taking out that depth. Then when I said, okay, next is minimum 8-foot ceiling. So that starts adding up, depending on the garage, let's call that 8 feet. Just as a number that's sitting. So now you're at 10, you got 18. So now you got to put a roof on. Depending on the context, some will have a 5 to 12, some will have a 7 to 12, right? Depending on your form. That's when I came to 26 being the max so that you get the space and you could create a roof that would be similar to whatever house building you're building with versus just a flat. And that's where that 26-foot number gave that variation potential. I forget what the section showed, the maximum pitch. I think it was 7 to 12 was the max. Depending on that, what I call section, buildable section. That's how I came to the 26 feet to keep it down from the 35 feet, which it doesn't need to go. It really will. So they are two different. One's conditioned habitable, and the other is storage.
Well, a garage starts out as an auxiliary unit,
Then it's being converted into the data.
right? But people have sheds that they put in their backyards now that they bring in and drop off. That's an auxiliary, a garage is auxiliary. Either one can be turned into a den. either one could be turned into again. Because we're making them put in their own sewer, we're making them put in their own water lines. We're turning them into homes.
The only thing, Susie, would be down in that last paragraph about has to meet Indiana building codes in a PA. So you couldn't just buy a, an Amish shed, bring it onto your house and make it one of these things. Because it wouldn't be codes. Is that accurate?
It is.
Yeah. Don't know. There's the road pitch.
It was trying to figure out different possibilities for roof
And the-
finishes matched
What
whatever.
we traditionally think of as an accessory structure, the garden stuff, car, or whatever, is that this is something different, has a different name, it's a definition.
And it's a different use.
What I would think,
15, 16 feet, you can never have a unit above the ground. It wouldn't fit.
I can see this getting abused.
Absolutely. Especially one thing.
I'm building a garage with dadu on top, so it's 26 feet, and I'm just gonna have a big tall garage instead with, just never use it for living quarters and have storage in it.
But you already had to build the kitchen, the shower, and the bathroom, so.
That-
So no one's gonna.
It's interesting that you bring that up, because when I was trying to develop right now, if they're wanting to push the garage up to 26 feet, why does it have to be just for daddy? Why don't you then just change all the zoning to garages can now be 26 feet? Why would you say, if you're gonna put a daddy in, yeah, you could have a tall garage, but if you're not gonna put an apartment in there, then you have to have a short garage? I mean, if you're allowing it for this, why wouldn't you change the zoning to make all garages as tall as 26 feet? It just seems like, why wouldn't you? You're simplifying it. And as you just said, you're now going to create a problem with, people are going to say, well, I want the storage, so I have to put an apartment in if I want to be able to have storage, and if I don't have an apartment, then I can't have more storage. You're creating a problem.
It's a different use. Then, so, yes.
I get it's a different use.
So-
I live here. I'm telling you, Danny's
It
right.
has nothing to do with living.
No, Danny's right. We know what is going to become a problem. But
How come they can have it and I can't?
yeah, and
I hear that a lot.
and why not? I mean, why wouldn't you raise I'm not in favor of raising it to 26 feet, but if you're going to do it, shouldn't it be for all garages?
Steve, can you, because I just don't recall, but we've got some lots just down from you, Dan, and then on around the West Shore where you got maybe even a smaller house lakeside, but you've got garage, full living and above on the non-lakefront side. How are we doing that?
Well, it was, how did they do that?
Yeah,
I'm not sure who let all that happen.
I've driven around the lake.
I'm
I
just
saw those
asking.
houses.
It's a
and
good
there's lot
question.
of them. There's actually a lot of them on that side of the lake that exist that have basically a garage. I haven't been inside the spaces, right? I'm
They
saying
call it carriage. They
Yeah.
call it carriage.
they're carriage houses,
Mhm.
which are dead, similar to that
Yeah.
language. And there's quite a few that are there from different periods of time. If you look at the construction.
And what were the height of
And even
those
new.
garages?
I think they're 100, up to 35 feet.
Could be,
And
yeah.
they're also new.
They're all
Some that are actually new.
Right.
Part of the
That's down for me.
I mean, new even since I've been on commission. Many of them. I'm just curious.
How the history of those came to be is, I don't know. We haven't done any of those in the last few years, approximately.
Well, I think you have to look at, the zoning. separate parcels. So if it's a separate parcel across the road,
Mhm.
you know, I'm basically building, like I said, a carriage house. So I'm gonna take advantage of building up to 35.
And it's a separate parcel.
It's a separate parcel.
So what you have
that's
is a
whole-
garage with
that's
a,
whole
with a house on top of
Right.
it.
Okay.
It is.
You know, I'm just concerned that, you know, even in town or whatever, if I have a house that's only, you know, let's say 15 or 20 feet, but what if I have a ranch and all of a sudden I can build 26-foot garage? That doesn't seem right to me. There has to, I think there should be, somehow it should be tied into the height of the home also. And I don't know what kind of parameters you put on the height after that.
Good point, because it would look odd.
Absolutely.
So this isn't language, just not, it's concept or an idea. So let's talk about attached. So what you're saying is the attached dwelling unit would not exceed the height of the primary residence.
Absolutely, it should be.
Okay.
That's what I
You know, because we do give credence to streetscape, when people are asking for
Yeah.
variances. Well, what does the street already look like? Now we're putting forth language that's going to drastically change what the streetscapes would look like.
Okay, so let's just stay with, because I think there's a difference between attached and detached. Let's stay with attached for a moment. Okay, so I've got a ranch.
Mhm.
Right? I'm gonna do a whole renovation. I'm gonna add a second story to the ranch. Which I could do,
sure
right? Then could I also then have a attached accessory dwelling unit? That,
would be the same thing.
yeah, it's like an apartment above and now attached garage, because I've got a second story across the side. What's our thinking about that?
So your second story would be in itself the attached unit.
No, I'm expanding living space for me, but while I'm there, I'm gonna go above my one-story garage and put in a, you know, mother-in-law or grandmother-in-law as an attached. Before we get to the question of detached, I think your point's well taken on separate. It's
Right.
detached. This is hard to say. What do we think about that?
I don't have a problem with that. If you increase the height of your ranch and you want to increase the height of your hatch garage, then I don't see a problem with it. The thing is, you know, as Steve well knows, we don't want to create all this work for the BCA, because that's what it's going to come down to. People are going to come in and we're just going to be overwhelmed, and we don't want that. So I think we need to be very specific on what we want in this ordinance, that there's not any question when they come in front of the building commissioner on a permit that, okay, that's not going to work, or it is. It needs to be cut and dried, as we get over, as Steve can tell you, we get overwhelmed with stuff, and this can create a whole other can of worms for us, DCA.
So, or the judge drew a line through that. We said something like, a dadu shall not exceed the height of the primary residence to which it's attached. And adu shall not exceed a maximum height of 16 feet.
You said dad.
But you're
I
back,
got it backwards. Thank you.
you're back to where you.
So, yeah, no, I'm dyslexic. Okay. Yeah. An adu or attached, right, shall not exceed the height of the primary residence. A detached shall not exceed a maximum height of 16 feet.
No,
That's
Does that
where we
have
were
the-
before. That's where we started.
Does that
Jason
have the
just said
desired
it shouldn't
outcome?
go on a dadu, it shouldn't go higher than the primary residence, is what you were saying, right?
Yes.
If you had a
Right.
ranch,
Right,
so you didn't say anything about 16 feet.
right.
It's
I
just-
said it. I don't think that you should be able to exceed the height of the home.
Right.
Attached or detached.
Mm-hmm.
Correct. Correct.
Right,
Yes.
so, well, detached, we would just say 16 feet's it, tops. Done.
Yeah, but if you're sitting at some ranch homes where that juxtaposition is,
Do we have any ranch homes that don't have a roof peak that goes to at least 16 feet?
He didn't actually say 16 feet, he just said,
The height of the home.
because you were originally talking about letting the daddy go, to 35 foot. That's what you're saying, it shouldn't be
Yeah,
a
yeah,
35
which,
foot.
Right.
which is like not, yeah, that's not right. What I'm trying to do is limit the height of a detached unit
Mhm.
to no more than 16 feet. But allow an attached unit to.
that's not gonna
exceed the height
hear-
of the home.
But that's not what he's saying, because he was talking about a ranch home. If you had a 25 foot house, you weren't opposed to the garage going up to 25 foot.
Correct.
So
Right. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Maybe I just haven't said it.
you're
Well, you're
just
putting the
using-
16, you're putting the 16 feet into that conversation.
With
On
your
detached.
detached,
Detached
if
stands
you had a
alone.
35-foot house.
Right.
Your detached can go to 35, not 16.
Sure, detached, standalone,
Correct.
it's 15 feet away from the main house.
That can go to
Is-
whatever your house is.
Is
If you have
that,
20
is
foot,
that what we want to do? Because that's what I thought I was hearing. This would get abused, particularly in LA. As opposed to I'm just gonna put a 20-foot addition on my 2-story house. Part of that 20-foot addition is gonna be an apartment.
It's- Getting back to what I originally said, a lot of what's going on in the lake, that could be a real issue. Because, and I don't know if we could, excuse me, I don't know if we could change, I don't know if we could do this to what the zoning is. L1 could be different.
Could be.
I mean, I don't understand what you're talking about, what's going on in the lake. What?
Well, so, okay, so I'm building, I'm building this 35, height
Okay,
home.
big
And then
home.
I want to build both, I want to build storage for my skis and accessories and stuff.
On the lake side or the?
On the
backside?
lake side,
Okay, I
yes.
didn't think about that, okay, on the lake.
We
side.
don't want that, and with the topography of the lake and everything, we don't
Oh.
want to be able, people to go ahead and have their accessory structure be 35 feet.
Huge.
That's where we had limited it to 16 feet, and that's been fine for L1.
Because
okay.
of the view that you're
Correct,
meeting with
yes.
this view.
Exactly. So that's why we've always, I can ask Steve, that's why we've always been at 16 feet. And everybody's abided by that so far. So if we change that, all of a sudden, the whole dynamics are gonna change. People are gonna come back and say, okay, well, I wanna go ahead and put my accessory structure up to 35 feet, and all of a sudden, it can't work.
Lakeside, I didn't get what you were going for.
Yes, that's
I
what
got
I'm
that.
talking about, is lakeside.
Not-
Yeah,
not
especially on
the-
East Shore.
lakeside.
That's where we
Yeah.
get all these 16, and that's why we've always, we've always limited to 16 feet. And I think that needs to be,
Very,
I think the zoning, what we're talking about has to be directly reflective of the zone that we're talking.
I agree.
something I didn't think about is that's lakeside,
Yes,
so. Realtor hat on here, I got that, I understand what you're talking about now. Another perfect example. In town, not lakeside, but we all know where Lee Marshall's house is, we all know where the Ripper stand is. And the house that they just tore down, 4-5 on the Ripper stand on Bradley Court,
back of Booth, back of,
right behind Booth.
Yes.
They tore the house down, $495,000 for a tear down. But you know that has a view.
Mhm.
That's where the money's coming. That's why that much for the lot. It's because there's a view. What would stop Boo from putting an auxiliary building, a secondary garage right on her property, but in front of his view? Now, that's not even lakeside. Oh, man, that guy paid that kind of money because he's thinking he's getting a view.
That's right.
Oh, baby.
That guy desperately wanted to be on the lake, and this is close.
Big view.
He's gonna get.
He's built her house. He's thinking she's done.
And she can build her accessory structure the same height as what she built her home.
Oh,
Which is pretty tall.
Still 16 foot though. So,
Right.
It's not
Yeah, good. Yeah, it's not feasible. Why would you do that?
so is like for 16 foot, is that for a small little house, 16 feet enough? I'm not knowing yet.
So that's for accessory structures.
It's accessory structure.
So you can build a house taller than that.
But if, let's say we made the max 16, is that billable for, can you make that a nice living? Should it be 16 or 17 or 18? I don't know. I don't know what that would be.
You couldn't build it on
But you
top of a
can't build
garage.
two primaries. You can't build two primary structures on the same lot.
yeah,
Right.
hold it right there. We had this conversation about Pam Fisher's lot and you told me you can. The other realtors didn't believe me. But
There's nothing in the ordinance that says you can only have one.
which is why that's being marketed, even though they're going to be coming to split it because nobody believes it. Even though the town has said you can build two primary living structures on one lot. It's 159 feet.
But what you run into on that is you can within the size of that lot, but it's not zoned correctly. If it was Daydo, if this was added in, yeah. But now you have two structures and it's multifamily. So it has to be an R2. Or
Even if they're detached. If they're two single-family dwellings, they would be single-family dwellings.
if they're on the same parcel / lot, it would be, that would fall under multifamily in R2.
Even if they're single-family.
Then you have two single family on one lot, it's multifamily.
So why, so have you changed your mind from what we originally talked about in February, that they could build two houses on that lot? 159 foot, has that changed?
Well, I think the understanding was when they split the lot,
Well, if they split it, yeah.
because there's gonna have two
Yeah.
parcels now.
Which they could.
Yeah, once they split it, they could. As of now, if it's one lot. But
So when it comes to accessory structures, I'm gonna get back to where this started. I don't see anything in there that says for accessory structures, that if you have a detached garage, you can't put a yard barn in your property also. I have a couple thoughts too. So you have to bear with me on these, but first one is what if something of this passes? And we know there's a lot of people want these. And what if all these start going up? This is just rhetorical. What, for now, what are the residents gonna feel about, when they have a house and their neighbor has a house, everybody has a single family dwelling on their house. And now all of a sudden, their neighbor's got somebody living above the garage next door, and you've got extra traffic and more cars in a town that the lots were designed at 50 by 100. How's that, just rhetorical, but how's that gonna go? Will the people in the community are they really gonna accept this?
No, that,
I don't know if people in the community are gonna even accept this. And then we still haven't got into, when you do this, how are the setbacks gonna affect these different things? So now if you have a garage that may be non-conforming, is grandfathered in, it's illegal non-conforming. And now you want to build on top of it, you'll still need a variance because you're adding to the non-conformance of the structure based on setbacks.
That's when the case happens. That no, that's pre-existing non-conforming. If you were trying to extrude that up, you could give a variance if you want, but I've been in that situation. No, you have to fulfill this setback. So it'd be a stepped condition. that happens in this case.
And here they come to the BZA.
Knock, 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 knock.
Thank you.
I'm still a firm believer it's changing the look of main section of town. You're going to have box upon box upon box. Neighbors, people who live there year round will not be happy. Chester brought that up. You would not be happy with rotating. People don't know the neighborhood, don't know who's got kids, who doesn't have kids, what strangers staying in the apartment, what's,
It goes back to what I thought. I'm not sure how the community as a whole would even accept this.
Well, the comprehensive plan, which is supposed to be our guiding light, which was voted on by this group, which was voted on by the town council, which we had 2 years of public meetings on, called us to maximize our types of diversity.
Yeah, but I don't think that includes packing everybody into one small area.
Well, if we have to meet setbacks and we're consistent with height, I'm not sure how it changes things, other than we provide more options for people to either stay short-term or long-term.
but we're getting the housing with like the Dunes project. We're bringing in the housing that we're talking about. Why don't we just go back to the 50-foot lots, get rid of the 75? We are changing. You said we're not changing. We are changing the community by,
Because the comprehensive plan calls upon us to do that.
but you're doing it. You're bringing in the housing. You're bringing in the apartments.
We, we could have done that anyway. The comprehensive plan envisions we do something different.
They want, so the comprehensive plan wants you to change the look of the community, or what does it say? What
Doesn't
does-
say anything about the look of the community, and where we kind of started this conversation was, well, how might we accomplish this without changing necessarily the look and feel of the community? And I have a comp plan now, so I'll
Can I ask a question about, let's say, existing parcel, existing house? On that parcel is 1,400 square foot, one-story house. I buy that piece of land. I tear that house down. I'm allowed to build a 35-foot house on that piece of parcel. Is that
No,
accurate? I tore down the house.
is it within the setbacks?
Yeah, oh, within,
Our ordinance specifically says if it's within the setbacks, yeah, but if your house is non-conforming and you tear it down, you have to build it on the same footprint to the same height.
so if I buy a house that is got a footprint of 12 and I tear down that house, I have to build it exactly in the same footprint?
If you're on a non-conforming
If it's
lot.
non-conforming, or if the house, if you have to, if you can't meet the setbacks, house is already
No, I'm saying
non-conforming.
that you need, I bought a lot of a house there that's 1,200 square foot, right? And now I want to build a new house. I tear down that house and I want to build a new house. I have to meet all the setbacks, absolutely, it's a given, right?
Mhm.
But I'm still allowed to build my house up to 35 feet as long as I meet all the setbacks.
Yes,
That's my point. That's all I look at things sort of formalistically, I guess, and understand growth and transformation. But that tells me if I have this little house, a lot of them, because they were built that period of time, the value of that land is so much more worth that I'm able to buy that house, tear that down. Now, as long as I fulfill all of the code ordinance setbacks, impervious surface, lot cover, and I can build up to 35 feet high.
it happens frequently.
On a conforming lot, and
Yeah.
95% of lots in town are non-conforming. The houses on them.
So you want those,
It's not.
so you want all those 1,200 square, those whatever.
Because the lot sizes change.
Well, when you say they're not conforming, you mean because they're not 75 foot?
Yeah.
Mhm.
That's
Right.
because we changed it. The town was planning on 50 and 60-foot lots. And within the last, 40 years or 30 years? That's 30 years?
I don't know.
We changed it, because it happened since I've had the cafe. We changed it to reduce density, which makes no sense at all, to 75 foot. So if we revert back to 50-foot lots, to me, that eliminates that. I think that's where we should go. We should just go back to the 50-foot lots. And we're building the apartments. We're getting more housing. Well, what we're talking about also is a house might have a garage now. We don't have a problem with you building a 35-foot house, but when the house, the garage may now be 5 foot off the property line, that person's gonna come and say, I wanna put a dadu in there and I wanna take it up to 35 foot. That's where it's gonna change. And all the garages are, because they were 50-foot lots, that's what we started out as. And a lot of them are 5 foot. I have one that's on the property line.
But Susie, this is a
Yeah.
conversation you need to have with the planning commission, not with what we're trying to accomplish here.
Yeah.
I think what you're saying has a lot of merit. But
I think it's gonna create problems for the planning commission.
yes,
Great,
that's why Steve kind of wants to help us along before he bows out, right?
I just,
It's
I struggle with,
It's a can of worms.
yeah,
really
it is.
It's a can of worms.
I struggle with how this is going to impact the community and the appearance. If people will accept this in the neighborhoods, I mean, that's really what it's all about. I certainly understand what the comprehensive plan is about, increasing some densities in some areas. But is it really going to be acceptable when it happens in practice? I suspect that there will be a lot of people not liking it.
Well, there's a lot of people who don't like any change in this town. And I'm kind of reminded us, we kind of started down this path because two of you came in on behalf of clients and the project seemed perfectly reasonable to all of us. We just a way to get there with the current ordinance. We're going to greatly, you don't have to build a 35-foot garage. I just want to convert that space that was there. And it happened not to be attached. And there was adequate parking and it met setbacks. So I don't know why we'd be so opposed to making a change to the ordinance that will allow for accessory dwelling in a case like that. And I kind of thought what we were trying to do was to solve that problem, but also put parameters on it so we didn't change the characteristics of neighborhoods. And we want people to come. I suppose that's one thing. We don't want people to be able to have, like a caregiver living in a separate apartment near where you are, and we all want to go to Miller's. I suppose that's another thing. But I'm just a little confused about where we are right now. It sounds like we're saying, well, to hell with the whole thing. Let's just not have any of it. When in fact, we already have it. And we've got a perfect example of projects that all thought reasonable. It just lacked a way to make it. So I guess that's where what I'm at, Steve.
I was gonna go back to, those conditions, because I've worked on in those situations, very dense areas too. As, professional architect, I have to abide by the setback. And that's already, there's no argument, literally, they might come to you and say, well, why can't I extrude straight up?
Right.
Well, because that's pre-existing non-conforming, what you're about to build is new. So yes, you can build on top, but you have to meet the setback of what you're building, which means you have to pull it in to that setback. You can't just go to that line. That's one. Two, back to the on the property line, that goes to building code. So there would be you could have no window openings whatsoever. So that limits that. And to have windows, you would have to be back a minimum of 3 feet. And I think you'd be allowed something like less than 20% of that wall area to have an opening. That's fire code on building code, not planning code. So these limitations that a professional person or anyone would be responsible for says you cannot go past that setback, right? You can go past the setback. I don't know about your ordinances, ones are different, but you can go back, which is called a appurtenance. Appurtenance, is that the right way of speaking that word? That can be like a fireplace, when they protect out of your buildings, that's considered an appurtenance. I think that's how they pronounce that word. Or a bay. Then the question would be your eave of your roof. Is that allowed to push back into your setbacks? Or does the eave have to be flush with your setbacks, which means your building would have to be pushed back further, or you have a no eave overhang? I don't know how yours are written, but majority would say, yes, you can push your eave into the setback. It's the building plane that cannot be put, right?
Yes.
So there's where building code, planning code, the person is really integrating these. They could come to you and say, well, I want to do this. If I'm on the planning commission, I say, no, this is what is fact. You cannot extrude pre-existing non-conforming form. If it's non-conforming, it has to conform, which means you have to put it back to the setback. Done that many times in terms of form. Back to the issue of that idea that you would have to, you could never exceed the height of an existing house. I find that, again, as an architect builder form. Well, what happens? I want to do an addition, and I want that to be a family room, and I want to have 10-foot ceilings with a cathedral. You're saying that I can add my addition and break the height of my roof, and I'm allowed to go to 35 feet. So that's where I don't see how that would be problematic in that way. You're also limiting the value of the property.
That's the addition to a house. You're talking about bringing an addition on the house. That has nothing to do with a detached.
Well, then, yeah, but it's the same thing. That is like, I mean, worked on houses like this too, is that what happens if that house, I mean, a lot of these houses, they have below 8-foot ceilings, by the way. A lot of them are like 7'8", 7'9" tall. Don't know why they were built them that way. They did. So now I'm coming in to do, and I'm going to build that kind of small little ramp space and don't have to. Why can't roofs can? It's better that roofs actually in form aren't all the same height in terms of experiential, because actually it starts creating shadow and form, dense and contrast. So that's what I'm like, that is not a typological typology that would, to me, why limit it to that existing house height? What happens if it has a flat roof? And I want to put a gable on it.
So I guess. From being
Just
blunt,
doing
so
these-
I'm just trying to get your point on this. Where
Is,
you're
well,
going
the
with
one of eliminating to the side of the house, I think is, I get the point, that one's trying to make, but I don't think it's realistic in terms of buildability, habitability, constructability. There's a lot of things that go into that. So, and then if you have an existing garage, you cannot have you can never put a dadu on top. It would have a flat roof. If that's, which you don't want to have, if you don't, kind of people's aesthetics. That's where, so that would always limit that. You can never do that. That means you're only building new construction, or you're reconverting the garage itself into a dadu.
Yeah. So this is from the comp plan. This is at page 92. Review and update Culver zoning ordinance to reflect the goals of this comprehensive plan, e.g. allowing diverse types of housing options, densities, mixed use in downtown and the entertainment character area, and allowing accessory structures and dwelling units and a range of lot sizes.
what does it say regarding spot zoning?
Well,
I ask
It
that
doesn't.
because
It doesn't, because I've heard spot zoning as long as I've been on this commission, and there's no place in the old comprehensive plan that says anything about spot zoning. It's a concept kind of made up and taken as an article of faith we can't do, but yet we've done it, and we've done it where it makes sense. And this isn't spot zoning, it's simply changing what you can do in certain residential areas. We already have single family houses.
when that gets back to, and I understand spot zoning is kind of we all know what it means, but I'm not sure what kind of official term that is, but the Plan Commission's been really strict not to do that. Why? I mean, relative to what we're talking about with accessory dwelling units, detached and attached, if we would do that, why would we not just say we can change the zoning in the area if it's correct. If it fits. The last two times it came up, it was denied by planning commission to change it. And both times it said, well, we don't want spot zone. I get that, okay.
That's what some members of this commission.
Some said that, but yet,
Some of us said we don't have a way to do it without going to R2. And R2, one of your proposed changes, which is a good one, is it's high density residential. That's a whole different ballgame.
but on the smaller lots where the last one that came through said, hey, I want to turn my garage into a apartment.
Right.
Perfect setup. I mean, it was
Right.
within setbacks. It had some water out there, didn't have separate sewer,
Right.
but it had its own circuit breaker box, it would be easy to convert to electric. It was on South Michigan. A block away is 2 or 3 blocks, or South Main, I'm sorry, 2 or 3 blocks. It's all R2 zoned.
Is this like Baylor's property where the pizza place was?
Yeah.
Yes, it is, yes. And
So,
it was interesting because he said, I want this overflow for my family.
and he said he
Went
would
through this
rent it
whole
out.
deal, and then he puts a for rent sign on.
Well, he said in the meeting that he might rent it out too, but the point on that is there's a kitty corner across the street was C2. A block away, there was on the corner is an R2.
Right, yeah.
There's 2 or 3 blocks straight of R2 down on the west side of that street. Why wouldn't we just be able to say that's R2? It'll never be able to be big enough to put an apartment complex on. We know that. Besides, people say if it's R2, now you can build an apartment on there. Well, you can't. The lot's not going to allow you to build a multi-unit apartment on there.
I mean, I guess I would say, but that's not why we have R2. R2 is not designed necessarily to get you another small living space. It's designed so you can create like a triplex or a fourplex or whatever it is, or bigger.
But the town's used it several times to do that.
The problem is there's these spots in town where it's R2, and it's like, why is it R2?
Because we didn't have another vehicle to use.
Well,
Right, well, that's
And
that's something that we need to
and I don't,
address as a plan commission. It's like, why is it like this?
and I don't.
And it gets back to the spot zoning.
I don't agree with that. I've been around downtown long enough to know that a lot of those R2s you're talking about, those were done illegally. And then the town, when it came to light, they slapped an R2 on it. All the ones you're talking about weren't R2, like the property right across from Baylor's that you're talking about on Main Street, the house that had burnt.
You live there?
That was my first apartment, and it was an apartment upstairs. Little old lady lived in the house and turned it into an apartment. Well, okay, that's now it's changed hands a couple times. Now town people buy it. Well, we need to do something now. We let it go, just leaving it as it was, R1, knowing that there was an apartment, but when out of town people start to buy it, then we address the issue, then we deal with it. Or the house behind the bed and breakfast that Horndan turned into an R2, trying to be sneaky, town slapped his hands. Guess what? Now they rent both apartments. It was a single family home. I think you might call it R2 now, but now that an out of towner owns it, now it's been addressed, now it gets rented out. It's just, we do this spot zoning rather than hold anybody accountable.
So-
That's why they become R2s.
So, I mean, I come back to one. Comprehensive plan is our guide.
Mhm.
I mean, first of all, I don't know who we are to substitute our judgment for comprehensive plan. Say, well, to hell with that. We're going to ignore that position. And then second of all, well, doing something like this begins to at least sort of fix the kind of the problem that you have done. I don't know. I'm just not sure where we are because we started this conversation with, well, let's talk about maximum height. And now I'm kind of hearing blow back in terms of, we just don't want to do this at all. So I don't know where we are.
I'm going,
Joel, do you have any comment?
I see Susie's point that this has happened throughout town for a long time. We had that one apartment complex down by the Odoms. That for the longest time was 3 apartments. Everybody knew it was 3 apartments with no hidden secret.
That's been there for like 60 years.
Yeah. And it's been
Right,
broken up in
yeah.
those sub pieces, but that also kind of gets to the, would it be an adu or because you're breaking up a house that already exists and you just cut off the back end and give them funny pipes?
Well, no, that's 3 apartments. That is a triplex.
Because we had one not too long ago that came out that somebody wanted to basically take their garage and turn it into a suite for their dog. So the daughter would have her own plumbing and everything and be attached.
That's what they're talking about. Yes.
Yeah,
That would be a daddy.
that would be it. Would that be a daddy or an adu? If it's
If
just
it's
garage
if it's detached with garage attached or detached,
attached.
then it would be an ADU, an addition, because it's attached. Just
But we did talk about the issue of, I think you brought it up, to keep it from being an R2 is it couldn't be 2 separate entrances on one home. Wasn't there something about, didn't we talk about that at one of the meetings? Like you couldn't walk into the house and walk into like a foyer and then walk into.
Oh,
one,
yeah.
and then it becomes a duplex. And that's not, I don't want to see much of a difference in a duplex and a daddy or adu, but
a
There are
duplex
areas.
could be great, square footage could be greater. That would be the one.
that's a little confusing.
Yeah, that's because when you just start putting walls up, but the entrance is still the same, that's why
They have to have their own entrance.
completely. Like if they go onto a porch,
Oh, then you could have 2, then you could have 2. If you
because there's one house on Fred Looney lives in it now. It's an apartment complex where Washington. That one.
Washington Street one?
And so we've had these situations. So that's why I'm kind of of the mindset of going forward, we should have something on the books so we can get ahead of it instead of playing catch up for the last 40 years of this has been quietly going on around town. If, like you were talking about earlier, if we could put height restrictions and other things into it, try and get our hands around it first and have more control of how it goes forward, we can probably have a little bit better of an understanding. Because if it is a garage situation that is attached, but it falls within the parameters of everything else, I don't want to see the height necessarily exceed. But if it's a detached garage and they want to just lift the roof by 10 foot to put a living space on there, it's going to look different. But it's the same as if somebody had a trailer, burned it down accidentally, and then put up a 3-story house on its property. You know, it changes.
what is that last one?
It's a,
So Don is absolutely right. The comprehensive plan is the guide to move forward. It was put together by over, I don't know, a long period of time.
2 years.
Where everybody in the community had opportunity to do input on that and design it. And yes, it calls for higher density. So if we'll move forward with this, which isn't, I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I'm saying if you do, gonna have to be some compromise in the rules a little bit. And then, I mean, or maybe not rules and how people think to move forward. And then you just have to set down the rules and say, this is what it is to avoid bringing extra cases to the BZA,
Yeah.
which I'm not sure it'll do that.
I do want to say that what Don brought up about the comprehensive plan says we need to, it would like you to look at increasing density. There's nowhere that it says setting up guidelines for dadus and adus is what they're talking about. You are increasing density with housing subdivisions.
It
So
does,
you are
it
doing
does
it.
refer to accessory dwelling units.
Oh, does it?
Yes,
It said that in there?
it
Okay.
does. It uses that very language. And right now, as we have drafted this draft, we've kind of said, first of all, it's got to meet all the other applicable requirements for whatever it's going to be, either R1, S1, A1. Did we even say, no, we didn't say L1 in this draft. We said R1, S1, A1. And then where we started with height, I guess my suggestion would be if it's a dadu, then let's go with the accessory storage unit maximum height of 16 feet. And if it's attached, then shall not exceed the height of the primary dwelling to which it's attached. So you don't have the ranch with the 27-foot pop-up. I don't know, that's my thought.
Then you take, just looking at, if someone has a garage, then they're giving up their garage, which is, worked on that way. But if they wanted to keep their car parked within a garage, then they can't go up and build on top of that structure. That's the,
Unless it's attached.
right, but
And well, and I mean, you may have an already unfinished space above your garage.
yeah, but those automatically, you'd actually rip out the whole joist, doesn't go, it's not a floor. It's a ceiling, so you can't structurally be a floor. So you'd be ripping off all of that to do that. Is it 2x6s or two, right? So it's not a floor structure.
I'm just saying this is sort of a nod to making sure we don't change the look and character of the neighborhoods. So if it was always a, if it was always a attached garage with space above it, it's looks the same. It's just finished out differently. And if you want to convert your garage, which I believe is what your clients set out to do,
No, the garage was remaining,
okay,
and we're building on top,
they were going to go up.
Yeah.
So
build on top.
Well, if specifications are created for the zoning districts, so this is, we're really talking, I think, R1, maybe S1, L1.
No.
yeah, as I was looking at this, we didn't, it was never, even going back to your first draft, never included L. It was just R1, S1, and A1.
Which
Okay.
is what Danny's saying, it alleviates that problem for you guys, right? Just takes it out of the equation to not put it in.
So then if it's a permitted use, it has to either be a permitted use or special use for the BZA to hear. If something doesn't fall under what's printed in that book under permitted use, special use, it doesn't have to go before the BZA. I would confirm that with, we haven't had that come up, but I'd confirm that with our town attorney, but if it's not listed there, you just can't do it. Permitted or special, anything outside of that just can't be. So if you have it listed, specifications under permitted use, and what that is, then they don't have to go for the variance. They can just do it. But you will ultimately have people come in for variance on setbacks because they want to do it and their garage is too close to a property line, or even the house is. That's where the cases will come in for the BZA.
So let's use me as an example, make sure I understand this. So my house on South Main Street, rental where Tim Howard used to live, 521. There's a tiny little garage on the property line. I could go before the committee to get a variance. Is that what I would do to be able to build up a second story on my garage? And I could go 16 foot.
Right now? Yeah, if it was approved.
But you're gonna have to go pull back the addition on top of the setback.
So, well, you have to have a variance because you're adding to a non-conforming structure. So you're adding the non-conformance on.
They're not gonna have to pull it back. I mean, it's on the property line.
Yeah, if you're just
The
gonna,
variance just to go up, not pull it back. So I
You'd
have
be
a
pulling
16
back
foot-
the up above.
I don't think so.
just to go straight up.
That is not that. Who does that? Where does that ever come into play? You give them a variance. As far as I know, I've never seen anybody pull back off the set. They always get a variance to reduce it from 10-foot side yard to a 4-foot or a 5-foot. That's what variances are given for. And that's what's gonna happen here.
So you need a variance to add to a non-conformance.
Yeah. That's what's gonna happen.
Okay. That's whoever decides to give a variance for that, but back to, I'll just say, for every example I've had, I always had to buy planning commissions, say, yes, you can go up, however, you gotta pull it back, to your addition, because that's pre-existing non-conforming, we're granting that to stay. But this new construction has to meet the setback as you go up versus saying, go to extrude straight up.
Like, you have to meet the setback, but if you don't think it's going to, then that's where the variance comes in.
But that's the planning commission, BZA's choice,
BZA.
right? That's a choice. Subjective choice.
Yes.
Right.
It is subjective. But you also, on that though, it doesn't ever set a precedent.
Right. There's no precedent ever set.
And that's built into Indiana code that a
Right.
BZA decision doesn't set precedent.
Because that's what we get.
In each case, it has to
Well,
be
you did
unique
this
and
for us,
individual.
so that doesn't
Unique to itself.
matter. Absolutely.
Which is why you
Yeah,
get
it
so
has to
many of them.
So can I ask a question about that? The BZA, you know, in terms of these coming in front of the BZA, I would think that if there's that many coming in front of the BZA, we understand trying to do this ordinance to limit this possibility. But then I'm looking at it, well, people are trying to do things. To me, that's positive, not a negative. Yes, it means more work on your side of having that role and responsibility be on the BZA, right, as an individual who's volunteering. But if that is coming forward from the public, I want to create a structure that could, you know, make it less by having outline of limitations, right? So that'll lessen that possibility. But I think that is a positive that they're actually coming in front because they're wanting something. They're trying to do something. They're trying to transform something. That's a positive in the community, not a negative. Just means more work.
Right.
So just sitting here having a thought is put the rules together. And then, you know, we all have houses in town, pretend you want to put one of these on your house one way or the other and do a practice run on yourselves. How would it work? Not saying you ever would do this, but if like testers, pretend you wanted to add one onto your house or do it, how would you go about, what would you want? See if you could do it within the rules just as practice, draft rules up and just see how it would work. And what the process would actually end up being like. Until you actually do like a practice run, you wouldn't know if it's gonna work or not. Just a thought, I'm just thinking out loud on what might, how it might work or how you could get a better feel for it. She's got some pretty decent things written up. See if you can make one, see if you can do it on your house and how it would work and if it would fit. I'm not saying do it by any stretch, I'm just saying just kind of, just to see.
I'm just trying to skim. Did you have the separate water and sewer lines in here? Because you guys have talked about it multiple times, right?
I don't know if that was in the original draft. You just brought it up as something that Bob Porter wanted to have.
I got a feeling at the last meeting that most people didn't think that was necessary,
Did or didn't?
did not.
Because then you're gonna really set them up to want to split
Yeah.
it off, and now you're gonna have a 25-foot lot, and
Right.
it's,
Not, it won't be
Not just-
accessory anything. It would be somebody else's property.
so are you kind of,
Well, they're
Have
gonna
you
split it.
backed off
They're gonna
that?
split it.
you guys not want to go that route?
I don't know. My recollection is we weren't real confused about that. But
Okay.
Yeah, as I recall, it was like, most people were,
So my question
Yeah,
now
me
is,
too.
where are we headed with this committee, this subcommittee, and what what decisions do we need to make tonight to move forward? Do we need to have another meeting? Do we need to refine what we've talked about here? And then present it to the plan commission, or where are we at?
I think refine these, get something done that's ready to present, and I still think you ought to sit down and see how it'd work at home. I'm not saying do it, but sit down and run through an exercise or two to see how it actually works, see if there's any flaws in it. If you can't find any flaws that it's gonna work, take it to the plan commission. That's gonna be the body that ultimately votes to move it forward or not.
Don was just gonna add the height stuff in here, right?
Yeah, I've just done that. I can put it up on the screen if you wanted to. Tuvia, I just have a question as an architect, and I'm not as somebody who's not strong in math either. So we think about 1,000 square foot footprint.
Mhm.
What are we looking at dimensions wise, and we're talking about detached and is a 16-foot peak?
Well, the 1,000 square
Okay.
feet, depends on the context, right? So your site will tell you the form, potentially what you could build,
Right.
right? So there's no given outline that would be, right?
Say it's a square, it's a box. What are my
Oh,
dimensions?
so if it's a box, you're at 30 by 35, something like that. 30 by 30 is 900, so 30 by 32.5.
Okay.
So go by 30 by 30, just that would be
Okay.
right as a footprint, but you wouldn't be able necessarily to put that on a lot based upon the lot.
Right. I'm just saying, suppose everything else is met. Does it 16-foot peak work on a roof on a structure
Yeah,
like
if
that?
it's one story.
Okay.
So, but I was trying to get at the conditions where there's someone already has a garage.
Right.
And we're talking about they've used up their lot coverage, impervious surface. So you need to, build straight up, pretty much, because you can't add. That's when the 26 foot was the max that I came to. It's a second story. If it's a one story, 16 feet is plenty.
With, what'd you say, 612?
612 pitch.
612 pitch, even 16 feet, you could even have depending on the height of your walls, up to 9 feet, right? So 16 feet is fine for a one story structure.
So 26 foot could probably have a steeper pitch on.
Yeah, if you're one story, extremely. But it was for the specifically if you're trying to build on an existing garage. That was, otherwise you can't, 16 feet, you can't. There's no porch.
Right. You'd have to convert the garage.
Yeah.
Or get a variance to go out. And for your benefit, one of the things that drives us to actually look besides comprehensive plan is when BZA starts seeing repeats, like this is the 6th or 7th case of this type, then we have a matter of policy of kind of step back and said, well, if you're getting this many requests, maybe we should reconsider the ordinance driving people to go to BZA in the first place. But that's the other factor that's at play.
Agree.
Because we want them to be the exception and not just the routine, because our ordinance doesn't accommodate something that makes sense.
So what does everyone think? October meeting possibly? Give it a final spit polish and bring it up in November.
That doesn't probably be ready.
Probably at least put it in front of the commission and see what the sense and full commission is, and then
If they have,
and then tweaks, and then follow the path that Steve's laid out for getting our, lawyer to look at it and so on.
we're already having them look over the updates.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get filled with time, same thing.
yeah. The only thing I'm looking at now in terms of a data should not exceed 16 feet. When we have any existing detached structures now that would be where the pitch is over 16 feet and somebody says, you know, I'd really like to convert that into a detached dwelling unit. It's not a dwelling unit now. How would that work, Mr. Building Commissioner? And my pitch is actually,
A two-story building or one?
no, it's a one. I say it's a, you know, it's a 30 by 35 and it's 18 feet instead of 16.
Can you do it on the main level? Or,
Yeah, because you're still not gonna have room to go up. I'm just gonna convert the existing space, but
Isn't this?
if you word it as shall not exceed 16 feet,
If it isn't that for new construction, you already said so many things are grandfathered.
It's gonna be pre-existing, non-conforming, you're just changing the use of them.
okay, that's why I'm
Eventually, right,
just
yeah.
trying to think through
Yeah.
not creating work, additional work.
Because they're not gonna wanna pull off their roof.
No,
That's what they're doing. You wouldn't want.
there wouldn't be any setbacks on an existing, like a one-story garage, what you just described. It's already there. You're just going to change it over or do the work inside. If it was in the ordinance that could be a dwelling unit, then they would just need a building permit
okay,
because it's already non-conforming. As long as you're not adding to the non-conformance, you're just changing the use.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about the 16, it limits anyone wanting to. Their existing garages built on top of it. That,
Which, if we're talking about not putting a second one, kind of leveling everything out, what's that gonna do for the parking? Where it says a minimum of one additional on-site parking space shall be provided, added or that.
Mhm.
So if you're eliminating two of them, one of them per garage,
You don't have anywhere in your code that says that the parking has to be within inside the garage. So if they have space, right? Right. And then there's certain things too, I'll just throw these out if you could. That deals with parking. So it's dealing with one right now in Seattle, Puget Sound. And in their code, which is, it's about parking, was you're allowed to have tandem parking for the single primary dwelling. But you can't have tandem parking for two units, a dadu and a house. Makes sense.
oh,
Right, yeah, it makes sense. Why? Because someone has to go in and go out, right? So there's things about parking that it's like, oh, then you have to make sure you have that space. Otherwise, again, it's a limitation. You can't do it. Right? But it doesn't say that you have to be within a enclosed.
Mike, which kind of comes to back full circle, I brought up how I hope it doesn't, and this is what's gonna happen, I'm afraid. You know, the property that I talked about Tim Holland used to own, slapped concrete down, that's my property, concrete down in the front yard. That doesn't look very attractive, does it? Does it look nice with neighbors? That's what's gonna
You should put then back to parking, right?
Yeah. happen.
Or you could write that into your codes, which is basically saying within this distance from the property line, that you cannot have impermeable surface or parking. So many ordinances I've read that, no, there's no parking allowed within certain setback from the property line to limit those cars being parked. As Susie was saying, in the front.
Okay. I guess a little more complicated. We still have our maximum 50% impervious coverage.
Mhm.
So
Sounds like you got a plan?
You can also do parking, it's pervious.
So yes, there's pervious blocks and materials more and more contractors are using.
You, back to that too. So I have to do that. That's really like can of worms too, because certain jurisdictions I work in will not accept permeable pavers any longer. Instead, also here in the Midwest, because of snow and freezing. Because then what happens is the water is really not getting back into the ground. I don't necessarily agree with all that.
The bigger case against that is they have to have maintenance or they'll plug up.
And no
We don't
one's-
have anything specific to that yet.
pavers plug up? What am I missing?
So they have pervious pavers that allow rainwater to run right through them. Well, that takes debris down through that. And like a sieve, all of a sudden that debris starts building up in there and the water will no longer go through them.
So they're not really.
So they become, they
Becomes impervious.
become impervious.
Same thing with, then there's porous concrete. So you don't want them to say, oh, which by the way, I sometimes say, can we do porous concrete? Okay, so, both sides of the equation. But then what Susie's saying, if you're allowed the porous concrete in the front, it's the same, right? As concrete just allows the water to go through.
Well, for me, it's, these guys need to move along. They got stuff to do, but it's the look of
Yeah.
of what I'm talking about. Not the, it's not, it's the look for the.
Right.
That's good. Let's wrap it up and
I'm gonna send you,
Hey,
Thanks,
for that,
I'm gonna
great
send you an
time.
updated draft with height limitations.
Get in.
that we
Did
talked
anyone
about.
else make it to that? Besides
you want me to like
Should get in. I saw you.
put it in a good
Yeah.
format to give to the planning commission? Okay.
See what happens.
Yeah, I know.
I think it's a good plan.
Yeah, good time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good time.
For the record, I like the
I
way
thought it was a nice-
this was
nice-
drafted.
Nice.
Thank you.
I think you should do it, I think you should do it every year.